The galactic dominion stretched across 2,700 known systems. Ruled by the Varnak High Council for millennia, it had brought order to chaos, structure to savagery. Entire species had bowed, evolved, and assimilated into the collective will. All but one. A planet at the edge of an irrelevant spiral galaxy. Earth***, classified as primitive. Watched but never engaged. Until now. High Counselor Zivar Quinn leaned back in his levitating throne, his bioluminescent tendrils flickering in calm arrogance. "Bring the data," he ordered. From the darkness, Soren Threx, head of xenogenetic analysis, floated forward, carrying a shimmering orb. Inside swirled the raw genetic sequence of an entire species. Homo sapiens ***. "The scan is complete, my lord," Threx announced, voice flat but laced with something unusual, hesitation. Zivar Quinn narrowed his 6 translucent eyes. "You look shaken." Threx didn't answer immediately. "We initiated deep-spectrum gene dissection," he began, "targeting traits associated with submission, compliance, and herd behavior." "Yes, of course. We find their mental levers, exploit their fears, crush their rebellion before it even begins," Zivar said with a wave. "That was the plan," Threx whispered. "But that's not what we found." The room quieted. Threx projected the first strand into the air. Helices twisted into alien glyphs. Data streamed like falling rain. Resilience markers far exceed baseline. Their tissue adapts to stress. Broken bones grow stronger. Muscles respond violently to trauma. But it's not just physical. What else? Their brains. There are sequences we thought myth. Neural plasticity beyond any chart. Evolution didn't give them tools, it gave them the urge to create them. Their default mode is invention under pressure. "Curious," Zivar said. "No, terrifying," Threx replied. "There's something else, something we almost didn't catch. It was buried deep. Recessive, but reactive. We called it Protocol Red." Zivar blinked. A dormant code, like an ancient weapon system, baked directly into their biology. It doesn't activate unless they're pushed to the edge. But once triggered, he projected a simulation. One human, surrounded, injured, outnumbered. Pulse rises. Pupils dilate. Hormones spike. ***, cortisol, endorphins, dopamine. ***. But then something else. A spark. Sudden, uncontrollable escalation. Cognitive override. Strategic aggression. Rage, sharpened to surgical precision. The single human doesn't just survive. It eliminates ***. In the simulation, 20 Varnak elite fall in 30 seconds. "They're not wired to submit," Threx finished. "They're wired to overcome." Zivar stared at the data. "So you're saying they are dangerous?" "I'm saying," Threx whispered, "we scanned for weakness, and we found weapons." But it was too late. The Council dismissed Threx's warning. Declared Earth a minor threat. They greenlit Contact Protocol 7, forced assimilation via orbital presence and social collapse. A tactic that had worked 1,000 times. Earth's atmosphere was already breached. Ships descended. They didn't know they'd just poked a species that evolved because the universe tried to kill them. And failed. The aliens believed they knew everything. They were wrong. The ships cut through Earth's atmosphere like knives through soft flesh, their sleek silver exteriors gleaming under the sun as they descended in perfect formation. In the capital cities, the skies darkened with their presence, casting ominous shadows on the streets below. Sirens wailed. People stopped in their tracks, eyes glued to the heavens. They had no idea what was coming. In a secure command chamber deep within the Varnak warship, High Counselor Zivar Quinn observed the chaotic displays of Earth's surface. His 6 eyes narrowed, a thin, satisfied smile creeping across his face. "It begins," he muttered. "This will be no different than the thousands of worlds we have subdued. The humans will either bend or break." Standing beside him was Soren Threx, his expression betraying a tension he couldn't mask. The data from the human genetic scan still haunted him, gnawing at the edges of his mind. "My lord," Threx said softly. "I must insist we reconsider our approach." Zivar Quinn raised a tendril, silencing him. "We've done this before. No species has ever defied the Council. This will be the same as all others. The human resistance, if any, will be brief." Threx's heart raced. "You don't understand. These humans, when faced with extinction, they don't just fight, they adapt. They innovate. They evolve. The protocol read, "It's not just a failsafe, my lord. It's a command. A war cry buried in their DNA." Ziva Quinn's laugh echoed through the chamber. "You're scared of a species that doesn't even know how to wield their own power. How quaint." He gestured toward the viewscreen where human soldiers scrambled into action on the ground. The sight of their panic-filled streets, confused governments, and scattered militias made Zivar Quinn feel a surge of confidence. These humans were no threat. The Council's decision was final. Earth would be subdued in a matter of days. Days passed. The Varnak fleet deployed its advanced weaponry, nanite-infused viruses designed to cripple the planet's ecosystems, neural suppression devices to render the populace docile, and mass surveillance to watch every human move. On Earth, the chaos was palpable. Governments fell within hours, global communication was severed, and the human military, caught off guard, scattered. But one thing surprised the Varnak. There was no sign of full-scale surrender. Instead, humans fought, strangely, intensely. They adapted faster than any species the Varnak had encountered. One by one, Earth's underground resistance movements emerged, united not by race or creed, but by sheer survival instinct. They became guerrilla fighters, unpredictable, merciless, and shockingly resourceful. Using weapons the aliens could barely understand, they dismantled the Varnak's control infrastructure, one city at a time. In the heart of the Varnak command ship, Zivar Quinn fumed. Reports of the resistance hit his desk, each one more disturbing than the last. The aliens' carefully constructed dominance was unraveling. A military commander entered with a fresh briefing. "My lord," the commander began, "the humans, they've disabled our neural suppressors. Our tracking systems are failing, and they've begun to attack our supply lines with precision. They even captured a few of our drones and turned them against us." Ziva Quinn's frustration grew. This cannot be. We calculated their defeat. We were prepared for rebellion, not this level of resourcefulness. Their technology should be primitive. How are they using ours against us? Threx entered the room then, his expression grim. "The human genome is far more than we anticipated. I warned you." Zivar Quinn's patience snapped. "You warned me about a genetic anomaly, Threx, not a full-scale uprising. Are you telling me that these primitive beings have somehow unlocked military strategy through their DNA?" Threx's voice was low, haunted. I don't know how they've done it, my lord. But they are evolving faster than we can control. It's as though their very survival instinct has begun to rewrite their entire species. They've tapped into something ancient, something far beyond any technology we possess." Ziva Quinn's tendrils stiffened. "You said they had no weapons, that they were weak. What are you hiding, Threx?" "I've told you everything. We miscalculated the scale of their adaptability. Their biology is not just resistant, it accelerates under pressure. Their neural plasticity allows them to reprogram their own instincts to match any threat. This is why they're winning." Zivar Quinn's mind raced. "You mean," he stammered, "you mean they are evolving during this conflict? In real time?" "Yes," Threx confirmed. I believe that their entire species is an evolved weapon. This war is awakening something deep within them. They aren't fighting back like any other species we've encountered. They're changing as they fight." Back on Earth, a human soldier named Captain Elliot Drake crouched in the wreckage of a fallen Varnak drone. He watched his team disarm the alien tech, their hands shaking with adrenaline. They had been outgunned, outclassed, and yet they were winning. His mind flicked back to the moment when it all clicked, the day they realized the aliens had underestimated them, had dismissed them as weak. The day they discovered that humanity didn't just survive, they adapted, they fought back, and they made the impossible possible. "We're not just fighting for survival," Drake whispered to himself, as the alien ship's shadow loomed in the distance. We're fighting to take back our future. The Varnak had underestimated Earth. They thought that by scattering their forces, enforcing fear, and deploying their advanced weaponry, they could break the human spirit. But what they failed to realize was that humans, when cornered, didn't bend. They fought back with an intensity that the Varnak had never faced. On the outskirts of what had once been Paris, now a war-torn wasteland, Captain Elliot Drake and his team stood in the ruins, watching the final remnants of a Varnak warship as it slowly descended to the ground. It had been damaged in a hit from a human-made EMP weapon, one of the first signs that humanity wasn't as weak as the Varnak had assumed. Drake's eyes narrowed as he looked at the crumpled form of the alien ship. They'd made it this far. But that was just the beginning. There was a bigger battle ahead. "We need to move," Drake said, his voice steady but urgent. "This won't hold for long." One of his soldiers, Mia, wiped the dirt from her face, her eyes full of determination. "What's the plan, sir?" "We know the Varnak are going to retaliate soon." "We take the fight to them," Drake replied. "We show them we're not just going to roll over and die." The humans had gathered in secret resistance cells, training, improvising, and building their own weapons from alien technology they had scavenged. What the Varnak had thought was their greatest advantage, superior tech, was now in the hands of those they had sought to conquer. As Drake and his squad moved through the remains of the city, the ground beneath them rumbled. The Varnak fleet had begun to regroup. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were retaliating with full force. Above, the sky darkened as more Varnak ships descended. Massive, looming craft that could crush entire cities with a single strike. But this time, the humans were ready. "Ready the drones," Drake ordered, his voice calm as he watched the skies. The squad deployed their makeshift drones, stolen alien tech re-engineered by human hands, and sent them into the sky. They weren't much, but they were fast, and they were dangerous. As the drones locked onto the incoming ships, they triggered a signal that set off a chain reaction, EMP bursts that reverberated through the Varnak fleet, disrupting their shields and communication systems. It was enough to tip the scale. On the Varnak flagship, High Counselor Zivar Quinn stood rigid, his tendrils twitching in frustration as reports of the human resistance reached him. "The humans have adapted too quickly," he hissed. "Our drones are being hijacked. Their technology is not so primitive after all. They've reverse-engineered our devices." Sorenthrek stood by his side, his eyes wide with fear. "It's not just their tech, my lord. They're doing something else. Their strategy, it's as if they're learning from us, reacting faster than we can." Zivar Quinn's eyes glowed a bright red. "This is unacceptable. They will break under our power. They must." "They don't break, my lord," Threk said, voice trembling. "They evolve." The counselor's mind raced. Evolving. Humans were doing something no species had ever done in the face of annihilation. They were adapting faster than the Varnak could counter. "Then we must crush them before they can evolve again," Zivar Quinn growled. "Activate the ground forces. We're going to show them the true meaning of power." Back on Earth, Drake watched as the sky above him filled with a descending alien craft. They were no longer merely invaders. They were a threat that had to be extinguished. "This is it," he said to his team. "We make our stand." Drake's fingers gripped his weapon as he looked around at the ragtag group of soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had banded together for this moment. The Varnak thought they could crush the human will with their advanced technology and superior numbers. They hadn't counted on human ingenuity, or the sheer force of will that ran through every one of them. Drake looked up as the first Varnak ship loomed above, its massive form casting a shadow over the city. The ground shook as it landed, and soldiers in armored suits began to spill out. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's future. The battle was brutal, but the humans held their ground. The Varnak fought with superior technology, but humanity fought with passion. The humans knew this was not just about winning, it was about surviving. The tide of the war was shifting, slowly, but surely. As the humans launched their attacks, the Varnak were forced to adapt to a new kind of warfare. Hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla warfare, and ambushes. The humans used the environment to their advantage, blending into the terrain, using their knowledge of Earth to turn the battlefield against their invaders. But the Varnak were relentless. Drake and his team fought through wave after wave of Varnak soldiers, using alien tech to even the odds. The battle raged on, but the humans had one thing the Varnak did not: the will to fight for their home. On the Varnak flagship, Zivar Quinn could feel his frustration boiling over. His fleets had been bested. His forces were failing. And it was all because of one thing: the humans had changed. "Threx!" Zivar Quinn shouted. "Why are they still fighting? Why haven't they broken?" Threx stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "My lord, they haven't broken because they can't. Not the way we understand. They don't just fight to survive. They fight to overcome." Zivar Quinn paused, his tendrils twitching in deep thought. "You said they would fight to the end. But I thought they were weak." Threx hesitated. "They are weak, compared to us. But that doesn't matter to them. Their weakness, their strength, it's irrelevant. They will fight until there is nothing left of them. They're not fighting for a victory, my lord. They're fighting for their future." Zivar Quinn stared at the screen, his mind unraveling. The human resistance wasn't just a nuisance, it was a war cry. "Then we will give them a war they'll never forget." What the Varnak didn't understand was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology, its armies, or even its will to fight. It was its potential. The Varnak's counterattack had begun in full force. The skies were filled with their warships, sleek, monstrous, and unstoppable. Their ground forces poured out, clad in advanced exo-armors and equipped with devastating energy weapons. But humanity wasn't cowering beneath the weight of their might. No, the humans were fighting back with ferocity, adapting, and evolving faster than anyone could have predicted. Captain Elliot Drake stood at the head of a newly formed resistance cell. They were deep underground, beneath the remains of New York City, in a converted subway tunnel. The once pristine walls were now pockmarked with laser fire and makeshift weapons. Humans of all walks of life, soldiers, scientists, engineers, civilians, gathered here, not out of desperation, but out of determination. Drake looked at the holographic map that flickered in front of him. It showed the locations of key Varnak installations, their power centers, military strongholds, and weak points. "We can hit them where it hurts," Drake said, his voice steady. "But we need a bigger push. We need to activate Protocol Red." The room fell silent. Mia, one of his most trusted lieutenants, spoke up. "You're saying we activate the old codes? The ones we've been testing in small groups?" Drake nodded. "It's time. The Varnak think they're the only ones who can deploy weapons of mass destruction. They're wrong." For months, humanity had been reverse engineering alien tech, modifying their own weapons, and, most terrifyingly, beginning to unlock the dormant capabilities hidden within their own DNA. Scientists had discovered something hidden deep within the human genome, a long-forgotten evolutionary protocol that had never been activated until now. Protocol Red. It wasn't just a battle cry. It was activation, the unlocking of humanity's ancient survival instincts, weapons encoded into their very biology. Fight or die. Survive at any cost. Adapt, overcome, evolve. Drake's team had been the first to test it. Simple genetic augmentation, using Varnak technology, had been enough to trigger the dormant weapons within their DNA. Enhanced strength, heightened reflexes, adrenaline-driven clarity, it was as if they had turned human biology into pure combat instinct. But that was only the beginning. Above the surface, the battle raged on. The Varnak unleashed wave after wave of assault forces, but humanity's resistance had become a living, breathing entity. No longer were they simply surviving, they were fighting back. Human soldiers in every corner of the world felt the change. The genetic modifications were subtle at first. A flicker in their reflexes. A slight increase in strength. But as the activation grew, so did their abilities. They fought with precision, strategy, and an unrelenting will to survive. Back on the Varnak flagship, High Counselor Zivar Quinn watched the data pouring in. The human resistance was accelerating. Their tactics were no longer random skirmishes. They were attacking strategically, hitting the Varnak where they were weakest. "We cannot afford to underestimate them any longer," Zivar Quinn hissed. His hands clenched the control panel as reports of human resistance came in from every front. The tide was shifting. Activate the suppressors. We need to crush them now. Sorentrex stepped forward, his voice strained. My lord, it's too late. The humans, they have activated something within their species. They are no longer just a resistance, they are turning into something different. Ziva Quinn's eyes narrowed. What do you mean, different? Threx hesitated. Their biology, it's changing. They've unlocked their full potential. They are fighting not just with weapons, but with their very DNA. They are becoming their own weapons. The Varnak counselor stiffened. Impossible. No species can. They can, Threx interrupted. I've seen it. And if we don't act quickly, we will be the ones destroyed. Ziva Quinn's tendrils flexed with agitation. His mind raced. How could this happen? How could they have overlooked the one thing they had always believed was their greatest advantage? Superior evolution ***. Humans, as primitive as they were, had harnessed their biology in a way that no one had ever thought possible. Back on Earth, Captain Drake and his team stood at the entrance of a Varnak stronghold, preparing for their final assault. The doors were massive, reinforced with alien alloys. But for the humans now standing before it, this was just another obstacle to overcome. Drake's voice rang out. It's time. The soldiers moved quickly, taking their positions around the entrance. Their weapons hummed with energy, ready to unleash hell. As the doors slid open, they were met with the full might of the Varnak Defense Forces, hundreds of armored soldiers, along with heavy artillery units. Drake didn't hesitate. His team moved with precision, the enhancements to their biology making them faster, stronger, and deadlier. The Varnak opened fire, but the humans were already moving, dodging, adapting, and counterattacking with terrifying speed. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about overcoming. Drake unleashed a pulse grenade that shattered the Varnak defenses, giving his team the opening they needed. They surged forward, striking with an intensity that left the Varnak scrambling. The alien soldiers, despite their superior technology and numbers, were overwhelmed. The humans had unlocked something in themselves, something ancient, something that made them unstoppable. Sorentrex watched as the humans breached the stronghold, his heart racing. They've done it. They've triggered Protocol Red. Ziva Quinn looked on in disbelief as his forces crumbled under the human onslaught. Their superiority had turned into a weakness. The humans were no longer just fighting back. They were overcoming every obstacle, adapting faster than the Varnak ever could. We underestimated them, Threx whispered. We've made a grave mistake. Ziva Quinn's mind spun. The humans, this primitive species, had turned the tide of the war. It was no longer just about superior weapons or technology. It was about something far more dangerous. Humanity's will to survive. The Varnak flagship hovered ominously above Earth, its enormous form casting a shadow that stretched across the battlefield below. The remaining Varnak forces had gathered in a last-ditch effort to crush the human resistance once and for all. But the humans had grown beyond anything the Varnak had anticipated. Captain Elliot Drake and his team stood in the heart of a makeshift command center, a darkened bunker beneath the ruins of New York City. The screens flickered as the final assault on the Varnak stronghold was set into motion. But Drake's mind wasn't on the technology, the weapons, or the strategy. It was on the people, humanity the species that had been on the brink of extinction, now standing ready to unleash their final strike against the alien invaders. We're going to end this today, Drake said, his voice filled with quiet determination. His eyes scanned the faces around him. The resistance fighters, the scientists, the civilians, all had become something more than they were just days ago. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. Mia, standing beside him, tightened her grip on her weapon. We've got one shot at this, sir. We take them out now, or we don't get a second chance. Drake nodded. I know. But we've made it this far. And we're not going to stop until they're gone. Outside, the Varnak forces were assembling for the final push. The last of their warships were descending to Earth, each one more heavily armored than the last. Their weapons, designed to obliterate entire cities, were poised to erase humanity from existence. But what they didn't understand was that the humans had already evolved beyond their original limits. The genetic modifications, the dormant survival instincts, they had all been triggered. Humanity was no longer the weak, defenseless species the Varnak had once deemed easy prey. They were something new. Drake's squad moved quickly, their modified bodies allowing them to run faster, hit harder, and think clearer than ever before. They made their way to the heart of the Varnak's command structure, a massive underground complex where the alien leaders were coordinating their final offensive. They breached the doors, and the battle began. The Varnak soldiers, caught off guard by the sheer ferocity of the humans, attempted to counterattack. But their energy weapons, once so powerful, were no match for the human resolve. The enhanced fighters moved through the Varnak ranks with deadly precision, cutting down alien soldiers faster than they could regroup. Inside the command center, High Counselor Zivar Quinn paced, his multiple eyes scanning the data as he watched the humans tear through his forces. His once imposing calm was now replaced with panic. He'd thought that the humans would fall under the weight of the Varnak Empire. Instead, they had become a force that threatened to tear everything down. "How are they doing this?" Zivar Quinn hissed, his tendrils twitching in agitation. Sorentrex stepped forward, his expression haunted. "Their biology, it's evolving faster than we can comprehend. Their instincts are guiding them in ways we never anticipated." Zivar Quinn's eyes narrowed. "We must destroy them. Now." As Drake and his team fought their way deeper into the heart of the alien command structure, they finally reached the central chamber. The walls were lined with advanced Varnak technology, artificial intelligence systems, weapons that could shatter entire planets, and the heart of the Varnak's invasion force. "We're almost there," Mia said, her voice tense. "One more push, and we can take them down." Drake nodded. "Let's finish this." They stormed into the chamber, weapons blazing. The Varnak forces inside, a mixture of commanders and elite soldiers, attempted to mount a defense, but the humans were unstoppable. Their genetic modifications had made them more than soldiers. They were apex predators, born to fight and to survive. "Activate the failsafe," one of the Varnak commanders ordered. "We can't lose this system." At that moment, a deep rumble shook the chamber. The Varnak had initiated a self-destruct sequence, an act of desperation to destroy the humans along with their plans. "Shut it down!" Threx shouted, his voice filled with fear. He realized that the Varnak had no more options left. It was now or never. "Activate the shutdown code." Drake watched the countdown on the screen. "It's too late," he said grimly. "We're not stopping this." "Then we'll make sure it's the end of them, not us," Mia said, her eyes fierce. The self-destruct countdown reached its final seconds. With a decisive move, Drake triggered the signal to launch the final assault. A barrage of human-made EMP missiles was fired from hidden bunkers across Earth. They hit the Varnak flagship, the command center, and the alien warships orbiting the planet. The explosion was massive. High Counselor Zivar Quinn stood frozen as the explosion shook the flagship. The once invincible Varnak technology, ***, their greatest weapon ***, was now reduced to rubble. The Resistance, empowered by humanity's own genetic evolution, had delivered the final blow. As the explosion subsided, all that remained was the silence of a broken empire. On Earth, Captain Drake and his team emerged from the wreckage of the Varnak command center. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. The world was scarred, torn by the alien invasion and the war that had followed. But humanity had survived. Drake stood at the edge of the ruined city, looking out at the horizon. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and ash, but there was something else, a sense of hope. "We did it," Mia said, her voice soft. "We won." Drake looked at her, a weary but proud smile on his face. "No, we didn't just win. We evolved." Humanity had awakened. It had risen from the brink of annihilation and had become a force that would never again be underestimated. The Varnak had come to conquer Earth, but instead, they had awakened a species that would change the galaxy forever. The universe would never be the same again.